Sergeant Martinez lowered his rifle and shook his head, frustration evident in the tight line of his jaw. "That's 23 misses out of 30 shots," he announced to the assembled group. "The wind's playing hell with anything past 800 meters today." Staff Sergeant Chun stepped back from his position, equally defeated. "I managed 18 hits, but that's nowhere near the standard we need." The morning sun cast long shadows across the range where 6 of the Army's most decorated marksmen had just demonstrated the brutal difficulty of the 99 target precision course. Captain Rodriguez observed from the command post, his weathered face showing no emotion as he made notes on his clipboard. The course had been designed to push elite snipers to their absolute limits, with targets ranging from 400 to 1,200 meters in varying wind conditions. "Gentlemen," he called out, his voice carrying across the range, "I think we can safely conclude that today's conditions make this particular challenge virtually impossible. Even our best shooters are struggling to maintain basic accuracy standards." The assembled snipers gathered their equipment with the resigned efficiency of professionals who understood that some days the elements simply won't cooperate. Sergeant First Class Thompson wiped down his scope with practiced movements. "Honestly, sir, I don't think anyone's going to crack 50 hits in these conditions, let alone 99. The crosswind is shifting every 30 seconds, and the heat shimmer past 1,000 meters is making target acquisition nearly impossible." That's when Lieutenant Sarah Blackwood approached the group, her boots crunching softly on the gravel. "Excuse me, Captain," she said, her voice calm and respectful. "Could I possibly borrow someone's rifle for a moment? I'd like to attempt the course." The immediate silence that followed her request was broken only by the distant sound of wind through the observation tower's metal framework. Sergeant Martinez looked up from cleaning his weapon, his expression shifting from professional courtesy to barely concealed disbelief. "You want to what, Lieutenant?" The betting started before she could respond. Thompson leaned toward Chun and whispered, $20 says she doesn't make it past the first 10 targets. Chun nodded agreement, already reaching for his wallet. "Make it 40, and you're on." Captain Rodriguez studied the young officer with careful attention. "Lieutenant, you understand that 6 of our most experienced marksmen just attempted this course with less than satisfactory results. The wind conditions are particularly challenging today, and even our top-rated snipers are struggling to maintain basic accuracy standards beyond 800 meters. He paused, clearly offering her an opportunity to reconsider. "Are you certain you want to proceed? Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you've witnessed similar displays of unexpected skill in your community, whether in military families or local shooting competitions. The surrounding soldiers exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their collective assessment of her chances. Corporal Davis, who had been observing from the equipment shed, muttered to his companion, "This is going to be painful to watch. She looks like she's never held anything heavier than a service pistol." His friend responded with a knowing shake of his head, already anticipating the inevitable failure they were about to witness. Lieutenant Blackwood maintained her composed demeanor despite the obvious skepticism radiating from every person present. "I appreciate your concern, Captain, but I'd still like to give it a try. I understand the difficulty involved, and I'm prepared for whatever the results might be." Her calm confidence seemed to only deepen the surrounding doubt, as if her very composure was somehow evidence of naivety about the challenge ahead. Sergeant Martinez reluctantly extended his rifle toward her, his movements slow and deliberate. "Ma'am, this weapon is zeroed specifically for my shooting style and body mechanics. You'll need to account for significant differences in sight picture and recoil management. Also, the ammunition we're using today has very specific ballistic characteristics that require extensive familiarity to use effectively." He was clearly hoping his technical warnings might discourage her from proceeding. The gathering crowd grew larger as word spread through the training facility that someone new was attempting the impossible course. Soldiers from other units began appearing at the range boundaries, drawn by curiosity and the universal appeal of watching someone attempt something that had just defeated some of the military's finest marksmen. The collective murmur of conversation carried a consistent theme of disbelief and anticipation of failure. "Thank you, Sergeant," Lieutenant Blackwood replied as she accepted the weapon and began examining its configuration with methodical precision. She checked the scope adjustment, tested the trigger pull, and assessed the rifle's balance with movements that suggested more familiarity than anyone had expected. "I'll make the necessary adjustments as I go." The confidence in her voice was unmistakable, and it only served to deepen the skeptical expressions surrounding her. Captain Rodriguez made one final attempt to provide her with a graceful exit from what everyone assumed would be an embarrassing failure. "Lieutenant, there's no shame in observing today's conditions and choosing to attempt this course when circumstances are more favorable. Weather conditions can change dramatically, and what's impossible today might be entirely achievable tomorrow." His tone carried the weight of experience and the clear implication that proceeding now would likely result in professional embarrassment. The wind picked up slightly, causing the range flags to snap more vigorously and adding another layer of difficulty to an already challenging situation. Several of the watching soldiers began making additional bets on how many targets she might hit before the inevitable failure, with most estimates falling well below 20 successful shots. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, skepticism, and the kind of professional curiosity that comes from watching someone attempt something that experts have just proven to be nearly impossible under current conditions. Lieutenant Blackwood moved toward the firing line with deliberate steps, the borrowed rifle held with professional competence that surprised several observers. Behind her, the murmur of conversation grew more intense as soldiers positioned themselves for optimal viewing of what most considered an inevitable spectacle of failure. Sergeant Thompson positioned himself near the spotting scope, already preparing to call out her misses with the clinical precision of someone documenting a predictable outcome. "She's really going through with this," Corporal Davis observed to his squad mate, his voice carrying a mixture of disbelief and secondhand embarrassment. "I give her maybe 15 shots before she realizes this isn't some basic qualification course." His companion nodded grimly, already feeling uncomfortable about witnessing what promised to be a public demonstration of overconfidence meeting harsh reality. Captain Rodriguez approached her position with measured steps, his clipboard held ready for documentation that he clearly expected to show disappointing results. "Lieutenant, before you begin, I want to ensure you understand the specific parameters of this challenge. Each target must be engaged in sequence, and you'll have exactly 90 seconds between shots to account for wind assessment and range adjustment. The course record for consecutive hits under any conditions is 37, achieved by Master Sergeant Williams under ideal weather circumstances." The wind shifted again, causing the flags along the range to flutter erratically, and several experienced marksmen shook their heads in sympathy for what they viewed as her impending struggle. Staff Sergeant Shun moved closer to Sergeant Martinez and spoke quietly. "She has no idea what she's walking into. Look at those wind indicators. They're showing gusts from 3 different directions, and the temperature variance is creating thermal updrafts that would challenge anyone with less than 5 years of advanced training." Lieutenant Blackwood adjusted the rifle's sling and settled into her firing position with movements that suggested more familiarity than her rank typically indicated. The surrounding observers noted her stance and grip with professional interest, though most remained convinced that proper form would prove insufficient against the day's challenging conditions. "Thank you for the briefing, Captain," she replied without looking away from her scope adjustments. "I understand the parameters, and I'm ready to proceed when you give the command." Behind the firing line, the betting pool expanded as more soldiers arrived to witness the attempt. Master Sergeant Kowalski, recently arrived from the Advanced Marksmanship School, observed the scene with experienced eyes. "I'll put 50 on her not reaching 25 hits," he announced to the growing group of spectators. These conditions would challenge anyone, and she's about to learn why we spend years developing the skills needed for precision shooting under adverse circumstances. The target array stretched across the landscape like a complex puzzle of distances and angles, each position carefully calculated to test different aspects of marksmanship skill. From her position, Lieutenant Blackwood could see the closest targets at 400 meters, clearly visible through the scope, while the furthest positions at 1,200 meters shimmered in the heat distortion that made accurate range estimation nearly impossible for inexperienced shooters. Sergeant First Class Rodriguez, the range safety officer, approached with his radio and timing equipment. "Ma'am, I'll be calling out your target sequence and monitoring your time intervals. If you fall behind the 90-second pace, or if safety becomes a concern, I'll halt the exercise immediately." He paused, studying her positioning with professional assessment. "Are you familiar with the wind reading techniques required for extended range engagement in variable conditions?" The question prompted additional commentary from the assembled marksmen, most of whom had spent considerable time mastering the complex calculations required for long-range precision shooting. Thompson gestured toward the wind indicators scattered across the range. "See those flags, Lieutenant? Right now, they're showing southeast at 8 knots near the 400-meter line, but southwest at 12 knots past the 1,000-meter mark. That's before you even factor in the thermal activity and the elevation changes affecting bullet trajectory." Lieutenant Blackwood completed her scope adjustments and settled more firmly into her shooting position, her breathing pattern becoming controlled and measured in a way that suggested systematic training rather than nervous anticipation. "I appreciate everyone's concern about the conditions," she said calmly, her voice carrying clearly to the surrounding observers. "I reviewed the target layout, and I'm prepared to engage the course as designed." The skeptical murmurs intensified as soldiers positioned themselves for better viewing angles, most expecting to witness a brief demonstration followed by the kind of graceful withdrawal that Captain Rodriguez had already offered multiple times. Corporal Hansen, assigned to ammunition resupply, double-checked his equipment while muttering to his assistant, "Hope she doesn't burn through too much ammo before she figures out this isn't going to work. We've got other units scheduled for range time this afternoon." Captain Rodriguez raised his hand to signal the beginning of the exercise, his expression reflecting the professional courtesy of allowing a subordinate to attempt something he was confident would end in disappointment. The morning sun had climbed higher, intensifying the heat shimmer that made the distant targets dance in the scope view, adding another layer of difficulty to an already challenging situation that had defeated far more experienced marksmen just minutes earlier. "All right, Lieutenant," he announced formally, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet range. "You may commence firing when ready." Target sequence begins with position alpha at 400 meters, then proceeds numerically through the course layout. Remember, 90 seconds maximum between engagements, and each shot must be a clean hit to continue the sequence. The assembled observers settled into position, ready to document what most considered a foregone conclusion, though a few found themselves curious about how many shots she might manage before the inevitable failure that everyone expected to witness. Lieutenant Blackwood settled into her final firing position, her movements deliberate and controlled as she aligned the rifle with the first target 400 meters downrange. The assembled crowd had grown to nearly 30 soldiers, drawn by words spreading through the base that someone was attempting the impossible course that had just humbled their most experienced marksman. Conversations buzzed with predictions and assessments, most centered on how quickly this demonstration would end. Sergeant Major Patterson arrived from the command building, his presence adding an air of official scrutiny to what had begun as an informal training exercise. He positioned himself near Captain Rodriguez and spoke quietly. "I heard someone's taking on a 99 target course after this morning's results." His tone carried the skepticism of someone who had witnessed countless overconfident soldiers learn hard lessons about the difference between confidence and competence. The target array spread before Lieutenant Blackwood like a precisely engineered test of marksmanship fundamentals, each position designed to challenge specific skills under increasingly difficult conditions. The nearest targets appeared straightforward to observers, But experienced marksmen understood that even the 400-meter shots required careful attention to wind drift and elevation adjustments that many soldiers never mastered despite years of training. Staff Sergeant Chun moved closer to the spotting scope, preparing to call out her hits and misses with the clinical accuracy expected of range personnel. "Ma'am," he announced, "your first target is the red circle at bearing Zirnanezero, range 400 meters. Wind is currently southeast at 7 knots, with gusts to 12. Target exposure time is unlimited for this distance, but remember your 90-second interval between shots starts when you fire." Behind the firing line, the betting pool had reached significant proportions as more soldiers contributed their assessments of her likely performance. Master Sergeant Williams, holder of the course record at 37 consecutive hits, observed from the equipment shed with the detached interest of someone watching a recreational shooter attempt professional-level marksmanship. "She's got decent form," he admitted to his companion, "but form doesn't account for the mental pressure when you realize every shot after the first 20 becomes exponentially more difficult." Lieutenant Blackwood's breathing pattern became rhythmic and controlled, the kind of respiratory discipline that suggested systematic training rather than casual familiarity with precision shooting. Through her scope, the first target appeared clear and well-defined, though she could see the subtle movement of the target frame caused by wind pressure that would affect bullet trajectory in ways that inexperienced shooters often failed to anticipate. Corporal Martinez positioned himself where he could observe both her shooting technique and the target impact area, his expression reflecting the mixture of professional curiosity and sympathetic concern that came from watching someone attempt something he knew would likely end in disappointment. "Poor kid has no idea what she's gotten herself into," he murmured to his squad leader. "Wait until she gets past the 600-meter line and realizes how much the conditions change." The range fell into expectant silence as Lieutenant Blackwood completed her pre-shot routine, her scope adjustments precise and methodical in a way that impressed several observers despite their skepticism about her ultimate chances of success. Captain Rodriguez noted her apparent familiarity with the equipment, though he remained convinced that technical competence would prove insufficient against the day's challenging environmental conditions. Sergeant Thompson, manning the official spotting scope, adjusted his optics for optimal clarity and prepared to document what most expected to be a brief demonstration of overconfidence meeting reality. "Target Alpha is clearly visible," he announced. "Wind indicators show consistent southeast flow at the 400-meter line, with minimal thermal activity affecting trajectory at this range. You're clear to engage when ready, Lieutenant." The surrounding soldiers positioned themselves for optimal viewing angles, most expecting to witness perhaps 10 to 15 successful shots before the inevitable breakdown that everyone anticipated. Conversations continued in subdued tones, with predictions ranging from immediate failure to optimistic estimates of 20 hits before she would be forced to acknowledge the impossibility of completing the full course under current conditions. Master Sergeant Kowalski checked his watch and made additional notes about environmental conditions, documenting factors that would later explain the expected failure for training purposes. "Temperature is climbing toward 92 degrees, he observed to his assistant. "Heat shimmer past 800 meters is going to make target acquisition increasingly difficult, and the wind variance between range segments is showing 3-knot differentials that would challenge anyone without extensive experience reading conditions." Lieutenant Blackwood's finger moved to the trigger with practiced precision, her entire body settling into the kind of stable platform that experienced marksmen recognized as fundamental to accurate shooting. Yet despite her apparent technical competence, the surrounding observers remained convinced that proper form would prove inadequate against environmental challenges that had just defeated soldiers with years of specialized training and combat experience. The first shot would tell them everything they needed to know about her actual capabilities versus her apparent confidence, and 30 pairs of eyes focused on the distant target with the intense curiosity of professionals watching someone attempt what they considered impossible. Sergeant First Class Rodriguez held his timing equipment ready, Prepare to document the interval between shots while mentally calculating how long this demonstration would likely continue before reality set in. The wind gusted again, causing flags throughout the range to snap with renewed intensity, and several marksmen shook their heads in renewed sympathy for what they viewed as her impending education about the unforgiving nature of precision shooting under adverse conditions. Captain Rodriguez maintained his professional composure while privately hoping she would quickly recognize the futility of continuing and accept the graceful withdrawal he had offered multiple times during the preparation phase. The first shot echoed across the range with sharp authority, followed immediately by Sergeant Thompson's voice from the spotting scope. "Hit! Center mass!" The simple announcement hung in the air for a moment before conversations resumed with slightly less confident predictions about her imminent failure. Several observers nodded approvingly, while maintaining their skepticism about her ability to sustain accuracy as distances increased and conditions became more challenging. Lieutenant Blackwood cycled the bolt with smooth efficiency and settled back into position for the second engagement, her movements showing none of the hesitation or surprise that might indicate luck rather than skill. Through her scope, the second target at 450 meters appeared clearly defined, though the wind had shifted slightly since her first shot, requiring subtle adjustments that experienced marksmen recognized as fundamental to consistent accuracy. Captain Rodriguez noted the time interval between shots, observing that she was well within the 90-second limit while demonstrating the kind of methodical approach that suggested systematic training rather than casual familiarity with precision shooting. Still, he reminded himself, the first few targets were designed to be achievable even under adverse conditions, and the real test would come when environmental factors began affecting trajectory in ways that required years of experience to compensate. The second shot followed 20 seconds later, producing another immediate call from the spotting scope. "Hit!" Again, center mass. This time the acknowledgement carried a slightly different tone, as if Sergeant Thompson was beginning to reassess his initial expectations about the demonstration's likely duration. Around the firing line, conversations became more subdued as soldiers began to wonder if their predictions might prove premature. Corporal Davis leaned toward his squad mate and spoke quietly. "Maybe she's got more experience than we thought. Those are clean shots, not lucky hits." His companion remained skeptical, pointing toward the distant target markers that indicated increasingly challenging ranges. "Wait until she gets to the 600-meter line," he replied. "That's where the real test begins, and conditions are only getting worse as the temperature climbs." Lieutenant Blackwood adjusted her scope for the third target and settled into her firing position with the same methodical precision she had demonstrated for the previous engagements. Her breathing pattern remained controlled and rhythmic, showing none of the tension or uncertainty that typically accompanied shooters who were operating beyond their experience level. The wind continued to shift unpredictably, but her scope adjustments suggested she was reading conditions with unexpected competence. Master Sergeant Williams moved closer to observe her technique, his professional curiosity overriding his initial dismissive assessment. "Her fundamentals are solid," he admitted to Sergeant Major Patterson. "Wind reading, scope adjustment, breathing control, all textbook perfect. But technique only takes you so far when environmental factors start compounding, and we're still in the easy section of the course." The third shot produced another center hit, followed by the fourth and fifth in steady succession, each engagement demonstrating consistent accuracy that began to attract more serious attention from the assembled marksmen. Conversations shifted from predictions of immediate failure to assessments of how many targets she might realistically engage before conditions overwhelmed her apparent skill level. Staff Sergeant Shun checked his range cards and announced the transition to longer distances. "Next target is 500 meters, Lieutenant. Wind is showing increased variance at that range, with crosswinds affecting trajectory more significantly than your previous engagements." He paused, studying the target through his binoculars. "Heat shimmer is also becoming more pronounced, which will affect your sight picture clarity." The betting pool began experiencing subtle shifts as some soldiers reconsidered their initial assessments. Corporal Martinez reluctantly acknowledged that her performance was exceeding his expectations, though he maintained confidence that environmental challenges would eventually prove decisive. "She's handling the fundamentals well," he conceded, "but precision shooting is about managing cumulative stress, and we're still in the preliminary section where mistakes are forgiving." Lieutenant Blackwood's sixth shot struck the 500-meter target with the same precision as her previous engagements, producing a moment of appreciative silence before range personnel confirmed another center hit. Her time intervals remained consistent, suggesting she was managing the mental pressure effectively while maintaining the kind of systematic approach that experienced marksmen recognized as essential for sustained accuracy. Sergeant Thompson adjusted his spotting scope for better clarity at extended ranges and observed her preparation for the seventh engagement. "She's reading wind conditions correctly," he reported to Captain Rodriguez. "Scope adjustments are appropriate for distance and environmental factors, and her shooting position remains stable despite the time pressure. This is looking more professional than any of us expected." The seventh and eighth shots continued the pattern of consistent accuracy, each impact drawing increasingly serious attention from observers who had initially gathered to witness a brief demonstration of overconfidence. Master Sergeant Kowalski revised his notes about environmental conditions, beginning to document what appeared to be exceptional performance rather than the predictable failure he had anticipated. Behind the firing line, conversations became more analytical as soldiers began discussing technical aspects of her shooting rather than simply predicting when she would fail. The initial skepticism remained, but it was now tempered by growing recognition that her performance was exceeding reasonable expectations for someone attempting the course under such challenging conditions. Captain Rodriguez found himself revising his assessment as Lieutenant Blackwood prepared for her ninth engagement at 550 meters. Her confidence appeared genuine rather than naive, and her technical execution suggested training and experience that her rank and apparent youth had not indicated. Still, he reminded himself, the course was designed to challenge even master-level marksmen, and the most difficult sections lay ahead where environmental factors would test capabilities that could not be faked or compensated through determination alone. Lieutenant Blackwood's ninth shot struck the 550-meter target with precision that made several experienced marksmen exchange uncomfortable glances. The consistent accuracy was beginning to create an atmosphere of tense anticipation rather than the casual observation of expected failure that had characterized the exercise's beginning. Sergeant Thompson's voice carried a note of professional respect as he called out another center hit, his tone reflecting growing recognition that this was not the amateur performance everyone had anticipated. Master Sergeant Williams stepped closer to Captain Rodriguez and spoke quietly, his voice tinged with genuine puzzlement. "Sir, I've been watching her technique for 15 minutes now, and everything she's doing is fundamentally sound. Wind compensation, elevation adjustments, breathing control, follow-throw, all executed with the kind of precision that typically requires years of specialized training." He paused, studying her preparation for the 10th engagement. "I'm starting to wonder if we've seriously underestimated her background." The 10th shot continued the pattern of flawless execution, striking the 600-meter target dead center despite wind conditions that had forced several expert marksmen to abandon their attempts earlier in the morning. Around the firing line, conversations became more subdued as observers began to grapple with the possibility that their collective assessment might have been fundamentally wrong about her capabilities. Corporal Davis found himself revising his betting position as he watched her settle into position for the 11th engagement. "This isn't beginner's luck," he admitted to his squad mate. "Look at her scope adjustments between targets. She's reading environmental conditions like someone with serious training, and her consistency is getting uncomfortable to watch." His companion nodded grimly, no longer confident about the inevitable failure they had all expected to witness. Lieutenant Blackwood's breathing remained controlled and rhythmic as she prepared for increasingly challenging distances, her movements showing none of the tension or uncertainty that typically accompanied shooters operating near their performance limits. The 11th target at 650 meters required more complex calculations for wind drift and bullet drop, factors that separated casual shooters from serious marksmen even under ideal conditions. Staff Sergeant Chun announced the wind conditions with growing professional interest rather than sympathetic concern. Wind at the 650 line is showing southeast at 10 knots with gusts to 15, Lieutenant. You're also dealing with increased thermal activity that's affecting bullet trajectory in ways that require significant experience to compensate. He studied the target through his binoculars, noting the heat shimmer that made precise aim point selection increasingly difficult. The 11th shot produced another center hit, followed by appreciative murmurs from observers who were beginning to acknowledge that they were witnessing something exceptional rather than simply documenting predictable failure. Sergeant Major Patterson moved closer to the firing line, his presence indicating that word of her performance was reaching higher levels of command attention. Master Sergeant Kowalski abandoned his documentation of environmental factors that would explain failure and began recording what appeared to be exceptional marksmanship under adverse conditions. Her time management is impressive, he noted to his assistant. 90 seconds between shots allows for proper environmental assessment, but she's completing her calculations and adjustments in less than 60 without sacrificing accuracy. That suggests either extensive training or natural talent at a level I rarely see. The 12th and 13th shots continued the pattern of consistent precision, each impact drawing increasingly serious attention from marksmen who had initially gathered to witness a brief demonstration before returning to their regular duties. Conversations shifted from predictions about when she would fail to technical discussions about how she was managing to maintain accuracy under conditions that had defeated far more experienced shooters. Lieutenant Blackwood adjusted her scope for the 14th engagement at 700 meters, the distance where environmental factors began affecting trajectory in ways that required sophisticated understanding of ballistics and atmospheric conditions. Through her scope, the target appeared smaller and less distinct, dancing slightly in the heat shimmer that made precise aim point selection a challenge for even experienced marksmen. Behind the firing line, the betting pool experienced significant shifts as soldiers reconsidered their initial assessments. Several observers quietly approached the original organizers to modify their positions, no longer confident about predictions of early failure that had seemed reasonable when the exercise began. The atmosphere had transformed from casual entertainment to serious professional interest in witnessing what appeared to be exceptional performance. Sergeant Thompson adjusted his spotting scope for optimal clarity at extended range and found himself genuinely curious about her ultimate capabilities rather than simply documenting expected failure. "She's maintaining fundamentals under pressure," he reported to Captain Rodriguez. "Sight picture, trigger control, follow-throw, all consistent despite increasing difficulty and time pressure. This is starting to look like someone with serious advanced training rather than overconfidence." The 14th shot struck the 700-meter target with the same precision as her previous engagements, producing a moment of respectful silence before official confirmation of another center hit. Her performance was approaching the range where even master-level marksmen began experiencing difficulty maintaining consistency. Yet her technique showed no signs of deterioration under the mounting pressure of sustained accuracy. Captain Rodriguez found himself reassessing not only her individual capabilities, but also his own assumptions about what her rank and apparent youth indicated about her training and experience. The course record of 37 consecutive hits had been achieved under ideal conditions by one of the military's most accomplished marksmen. Yet she was approaching that milestone under environmental circumstances that would challenge anyone regardless of their skill level. Around the firing line, experienced soldiers began discussing technical aspects of her shooting with the kind of professional respect typically reserved for acknowledged experts. The initial skepticism remained regarding her ability to complete the full 99 target course. but it was now tempered by growing recognition that they were witnessing performance that exceeded their collective expectations by a significant margin. Lieutenant Blackwood's 15th shot echoed across the range with the same authoritative crack that had preceded 14 consecutive center hits, and Sergeant Thompson's confirmation of another perfect impact created a palpable shift in the atmosphere surrounding the firing line. The casual conversations had ceased entirely, replaced by the kind of intense focus that accompanied witnessing something that defied professional expectations and challenged fundamental assumptions about capability assessment. Master Sergeant Williams found himself studying her technique with the analytical intensity he typically reserved for advanced training evaluations, searching for signs of impending breakdown that never materialized. Her fundamentals remain textbook perfect, he murmured to Captain Rodriguez, but we're approaching distances where even minor technical flaws become magnified exponentially. The fact that she's maintaining this level of consistency at 750 meters under these conditions is frankly unprecedented in my experience. The 16th and 17th shots continued the pattern of flawless execution, each impact drawing increasingly serious attention from observers who had abandoned their regular duties to witness what was becoming clear was an exceptional demonstration of marksmanship skill. Around the firing line, soldiers gathered in clusters, their discussions focused entirely on technical aspects of her performance rather than predictions about when the inevitable failure would occur. Staff Sergeant Chun checked his environmental monitoring equipment and announced conditions with growing professional concern rather than sympathetic warning. Lieutenant, you're approaching the 800-meter line where wind variance becomes significantly more complex. We're showing crosswinds from multiple directions with velocity differences that require advanced compensation techniques. Additionally, the heat shimmer is affecting target visibility in ways that challenge even our most experienced marksmen. Lieutenant Blackwood acknowledged the briefing with calm professionalism, while making scope adjustments that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of long-range ballistics and environmental compensation. Her breathing pattern remained controlled and methodical, showing none of the tension or uncertainty that typically accompanied shooters operating near their performance limits under mounting pressure from both environmental factors and audience expectations. Sergeant Major Patterson positioned himself where he could observe both her shooting technique and the growing crowd of spectators, his presence indicating that word of her performance was spreading throughout the base command structure. This is attracting attention from levels that don't usually concern themselves with routine training exercises, he observed to Master Sergeant Kowalski. If she continues this performance much longer, we're going to have field-grade officers arriving to witness something that's starting to look historically significant. The 18th shot struck the 800-meter target with precision that made several experienced marksmen shake their heads in disbelief, their expressions reflecting the uncomfortable realization that their collective professional assessment had been fundamentally incorrect. Conversations became more analytical as soldiers attempted to understand how someone they had dismissed was demonstrating capabilities that exceeded their own extensive training and experience. Behind the firing line, the betting pool had effectively collapsed as participants recognized that their initial predictions were proving spectacularly wrong. Corporal Davis approached his squad leader with genuine puzzlement evident in his voice. "Sergeant, I've been watching precision shooting for 8 years, and this is unlike anything I've seen before. She's not just hitting targets. She's placing every shot dead center under conditions that forced our best marksmen to withdraw from the exercise." Lieutenant Blackwood prepared for her 19th engagement at 850 meters, a distance where atmospheric conditions began affecting bullet trajectory in ways that required years of specialized training to compensate effectively. Through her scope, the target appeared significantly smaller and less distinct, dancing in heat shimmer that made precise aim point selection challenging even for master-level marksmen with extensive long-range experience. Master Sergeant Kowalski abandoned his original documentation format and began recording what was clearly exceptional performance that might require formal recognition and analysis. "Her time management continues to impress," he noted to his assistant. She's completing complex ballistic calculations and environmental assessments in less time than most marksmen require for basic range estimation, yet maintaining accuracy that suggests either extensive advanced training or natural ability at levels I've never encountered. The 19th and 20th shots continued the pattern of consistent precision, each impact producing respectful silence before official confirmation of center hits that were approaching the existing course record under conditions far more challenging than those that had established the previous benchmark. The atmosphere had transformed completely from casual observation of expected failure to intense professional interest in witnessing potential history. Sergeant Thompson found himself genuinely invested in her success rather than simply documenting performance for training purposes. "She's 5 shots away from tying the course record," he announced to the assembled observers, "and 17 shots beyond that to achieve something that no one has ever accomplished under any conditions." The technical challenges ahead are exponentially more difficult, but her performance suggests capabilities that none of us anticipated. Captain Rodriguez revised his assessment completely as Lieutenant Blackwood settled into position for her 21st engagement at 900 meters. The distance represented a significant escalation in difficulty, requiring sophisticated understanding of ballistics, atmospheric conditions, and equipment limitations that separated casual marksmen from true experts in precision shooting under adverse circumstances. Around the firing line, experienced soldiers began acknowledging that they were witnessing something exceptional rather than simply observing a training exercise that had exceeded initial expectations. The collective skepticism that had characterized the exercise's beginning had transformed into professional respect, tempered by genuine curiosity about her ultimate capabilities and background training that could produce such remarkable performance. The wind shifted again, creating additional complexity for long-range engagements. Yet Lieutenant Blackwood's scope adjustment suggested she was reading environmental conditions with expertise that typically required years of specialized instruction and field experience. Her confidence appeared genuine rather than naive, supported by demonstrated competence that was silencing doubt and earning recognition from marksmen who understood the difficulty of what she was accomplishing under challenging conditions that had defeated far more experienced shooters. Lieutenant Blackwood's 21st shot struck the 900-meter target with precision that created absolute silence across the range, broken only by Sergeant Thompson's voice confirming another center hit in tones that carried genuine, or rather than routine documentation. The assembled observers had moved beyond professional curiosity into the realm of witnessing something that challenged their fundamental understanding of marksmanship capabilities under adverse conditions. Master Sergeant Williams approached Captain Rodriguez with the expression of someone grappling with evidence that contradicted years of professional experience. "Sir, she's now operating in territory that separates expert marksmen from true masters of the craft," he said quietly. 900 meters under these wind conditions requires ballistic calculations and environmental compensation that most of our advanced students struggle with after months of specialized instruction. Her consistency suggests training and experience that her apparent age and rank simply don't indicate. The 22nd and 23rd shots continued the pattern of flawless execution, each impact demonstrating sustained accuracy that was approaching the psychological threshold where even experienced marksmen began questioning their own capabilities. Around the firing line, conversations became increasingly technical as soldiers attempted to understand how someone they had initially dismissed was maintaining performance levels that exceeded their collective professional experience. Staff Sergeant Chan monitored environmental conditions with growing fascination rather than concern for her welfare. Wind variance between the 800 and 1,000-meter lines is showing differences that would challenge anyone, he announced to the assembled observers. She's dealing with crosswinds, thermal updrafts, and visibility issues that forced Master Sergeant Williams to withdraw from this same course under better conditions last month. Her ability to maintain accuracy suggests either exceptional natural talent or training that we're not aware of. Lieutenant Blackwood adjusted her scope for the 24th engagement at 950 meters, a distance where atmospheric effects began dominating trajectory calculations in ways that required sophisticated understanding of physics and meteorology. Her breathing remained controlled and methodical, showing none of the tension that typically accompanied shooters operating at the extreme limits of their capabilities under mounting pressure from both environmental factors and audience expectations. Sergeant Major Patterson found himself documenting what was clearly becoming a significant training event rather than routine marksmanship practice. "This performance is going to require formal review and analysis," he observed to Master Sergeant Kowalski. "Her technique and results are challenging assumptions about capability assessment that have guided our training programs for years. If she continues this level of performance, we're looking at something that will impact how we evaluate and develop advanced marksmanship skills." The 24th shot produced another center hit that drew appreciative murmurs from observers who had completely abandoned their initial skepticism in favor of professional respect for exceptional demonstrated competence. Behind the firing line, soldiers gathered in larger groups to discuss technical aspects of her shooting with the kind of analytical intensity typically reserved for formal training debriefings. Master Sergeant Kowalski revised his documentation approach entirely, focusing on recording exceptional performance rather than expected failure. Her scope adjustments between targets demonstrate sophisticated understanding of environmental compensation, he noted to his assistant. Wind reading, elevation calculations, thermal effect mitigation, all executed with precision that suggests advanced training or natural ability at levels that challenge standard assessment protocols. Lieutenant Blackwood prepared for her 25th engagement while maintaining the calm professionalism that had characterized her performance throughout the exercise, her movements showing none of the fatigue or uncertainty that might indicate she was approaching her performance limits. The target at 1,000 meters appeared significantly smaller through her scope, requiring precise aim point selection under conditions that made accurate shooting extraordinarily challenging. Sergeant Thompson adjusted his spotting equipment for maximum clarity at extended range and found himself anticipating her continued success rather than documenting predictable failure. "She's maintaining fundamentals under conditions that would test anyone," he reported to Captain Rodriguez. "Breathing control, trigger discipline, follow-through, all consistent despite mounting pressure and increasing technical difficulty. This is performance at a level that requires formal recognition." The 25th shot struck the 1,000-meter target dead center, producing a moment of respectful silence before confirmation of another perfect impact that brought her within 12 shots of tying the course record under conditions far more challenging than those that had established the previous benchmark. The atmosphere had transformed completely from casual observation to intense professional focus on witnessing potential history. Captain Rodriguez found himself revising not only his assessment of her individual capabilities, but also his understanding of what exceptional marksmanship looked like under pressure. The course record had been achieved by one of the military's most accomplished marksmen under ideal environmental conditions. Yet she was approaching that milestone while dealing with wind, heat, and visibility challenges that would defeat most shooters regardless of their training and experience. Around the firing line, experienced soldiers began discussing her performance with the kind of professional respect typically reserved for acknowledged masters of precision shooting. The initial dismissive attitude had transformed into genuine appreciation for demonstrated competence that exceeded their collective expectations by margins that challenged their understanding of what was possible under such adverse circumstances. Behind her position, conversations focused entirely on technical analysis of her shooting technique and speculation about her background training that could produce such remarkable results. The betting pool had been abandoned entirely as participants recognized that their predictions had been fundamentally wrong about her capabilities and the likelihood of sustained success under challenging conditions. Lieutenant Blackwood settled into position for her 26th engagement at 1,050 meters, entering range parameters where even master-level marksmen experienced significant difficulty maintaining consistency. Her confidence appeared unshaken by the mounting technical challenges, supported by demonstrated performance that was earning recognition from observers who understood the extraordinary difficulty of what she was accomplishing under environmental conditions that had forced more experienced shooters to abandon their attempts. Lieutenant Blackwood's 26-shot struck the 1,050-meter target with precision that made Master Sergeant Williams quietly shake his head in disbelief, his expression reflecting the uncomfortable realization that he was witnessing marksmanship capabilities that exceeded his own extensive experience and training. The confirmation of another center hit created a ripple of appreciation through the assembled observers who had completely abandoned their duties to focus on what was clearly becoming a historic demonstration. Captain Rodriguez found himself checking his watch not to monitor compliance with training schedules, but to document the timing of what appeared to be an unprecedented achievement in military marksmanship. "She's 11 shots away from tying the course record," he announced to the growing crowd of spectators. "And in environmental conditions she's dealing with are significantly more challenging than those Master Sergeant Williams faced when he established the benchmark under ideal circumstances." The 27th and 28th shots continued the pattern of sustained excellence, each impact demonstrating consistency that defied professional understanding of what was possible under such adverse conditions. Staff Sergeant Chun abandoned his environmental monitoring protocols and began documenting what was clearly exceptional performance that would require detailed analysis and formal recognition from higher command levels. Sergeant Major Patterson approached the firing line with the measured steps of someone who recognized that routine training had evolved into something requiring immediate attention from field-grade leadership. "This performance is going to generate questions about our assessment and training protocols," he observed to Master Sergeant Kowalski. "Her results are challenging fundamental assumptions about capability development that have guided our programs for decades." Lieutenant Blackwood adjusted her scope for the 29th engagement at 1,100 meters, entering distance parameters where atmospheric effects dominated ballistic calculations in ways that required years of specialized training to understand and compensate. Her breathing remained controlled and rhythmic, showing none of the fatigue or pressure that typically affected shooters operating at the extreme limits of human marksmanship capability. Behind the firing line, experienced soldiers gathered in larger groups to discuss technical aspects of her performance with the analytical intensity typically reserved for formal after-action reviews. Conversations focused entirely on ballistic calculations, environmental compensation techniques, and equipment capabilities rather than predictions about when she might fail, reflecting complete transformation of expectations and professional respect. Master Sergeant Williams moved closer to observe her preparation techniques, searching for indicators that might explain performance that challenged his understanding of advanced marksmanship. Her scope adjustments demonstrate sophisticated understanding of long-range ballistics, he reported to Captain Rodriguez. Wind compensation, elevation calculations, thermal effect mitigation, all executed with precision that suggests training and experience at levels I've rarely encountered in 23 years of military service. The 29-shot produced another center hit that brought audible expressions of appreciation from observers who understood the extraordinary difficulty of maintaining such accuracy under conditions that had forced multiple expert marksmen to abandon their attempts earlier in the day. Sergeant Thompson's confirmation carried genuine admiration rather than routine documentation as he called out another perfect impact. Lieutenant Blackwood settled into position for her 30th engagement while maintaining the calm professionalism that had characterized her entire performance. Her movements showing confidence supported by demonstrated competence rather than naive optimism about challenges that lay ahead. The target at 1,150 meters required precise aim point selection under visibility conditions that made accurate shooting extraordinarily demanding. Staff Sergeant Chun checked his environmental monitoring equipment and announced conditions with fascination rather than concern for her welfare. Heat shimmer at extended range is affecting target visibility in ways that challenge even our most advanced optical equipment, he reported to the assembled observers. Wind variance between range segments is showing differences that require constant recalculation of trajectory compensation. Yet her accuracy suggests she's managing these factors with exceptional competence. The 30th shot struck the target dead center, bringing her within 7 hits of tying the course record under environmental circumstances that were exponentially more challenging than those that had established the previous benchmark. Around the firing line, conversations became increasingly focused on the historical significance of what they were witnessing rather than technical analysis of shooting technique. Master Sergeant Kowalski revised his documentation approach completely, recording exceptional achievement rather than routine training results. Her performance is challenging every assumption we've made about marksmanship capability assessment, he noted to his assistant. If she continues this level of accuracy, we're looking at something that will require formal review by command levels that don't typically concern themselves with individual training achievements. Captain Rodriguez found himself anticipating her continued success rather than waiting for the inevitable breakdown that had seemed certain when the exercise began. The transformation of his expectations reflected the collective professional recognition that they were witnessing something that transcended routine demonstration of military skills and entered the realm of exceptional human performance under pressure. Lieutenant Blackwood prepared for her 31st engagement at 1,200 meters, the distance where even master-level marksmen experienced significant difficulty maintaining any level of consistency. Her scope adjustments suggested sophisticated understanding of atmospheric conditions and ballistic compensation that typically required years of specialized instruction and extensive field experience to develop. Behind her position, experienced soldiers discussed her performance with the kind of professional respect typically reserved for acknowledged experts in precision shooting. The initial skepticism had transformed completely into genuine appreciation for demonstrated capabilities that exceeded their collective understanding of what was possible under such challenging environmental conditions. Sergeant Thompson adjusted his spotting equipment for maximum clarity and found himself genuinely invested in documenting her continued success rather than simply recording training results for administrative purposes. She's operating in territory that challenges our understanding of human marksmanship capabilities, he reported to Captain Rodriguez. Her consistency under these conditions suggests either exceptional natural talent or advanced training that we haven't properly recognized or documented. Lieutenant Blackwood's 31st shot echoed across the range with authority that had become familiar, yet no less impressive after 30 previous demonstrations of flawless execution, and Sergeant Thompson's confirmation of another center hit brought her within 6 shots of equaling the course record that had stood unchallenged for 3 years. The assembled observers had grown to include personnel from across the base, drawn by reports of exceptional marksmanship that was redefining understanding of human capability under adverse conditions. Master Sergeant Williams found himself documenting performance that challenged every assumption he had developed about advanced shooting skills during 2 decades of military service. Sir, she's now operating consistently at distances and under conditions that represent the absolute pinnacle of precision marksmanship, he reported to Captain Rodriguez. The fact that she's maintained perfect accuracy through 31 engagements under environmental circumstances that defeated our most experienced shooters suggests capabilities that transcend normal training and experience parameters. The 32nd and 33rd shots continued the pattern of sustained excellence that had transformed routine training into a demonstration of exceptional human performance under pressure. Each impact drew increasingly serious attention from observers who understood that they were witnessing something that would require formal documentation and analysis by command levels rarely concerned with individual training achievements. Staff Sergeant Chun monitored environmental conditions with fascination rather than professional concern, his equipment readings documenting the extraordinary difficulty of maintaining accuracy under circumstances that continued to challenge even the most advanced marksmanship techniques. Wind variance across the range segments is showing patterns that would require constant recalculation of compensation factors, he announced to the assembled crowd. Her ability to maintain consistency suggests either exceptional natural talent or training at levels that exceed our standard assessment protocols. Lieutenant Blackwood adjusted her scope for the 34th engagement at 1,250 meters, entering distance parameters where atmospheric effects and equipment limitations began imposing physical constraints on accuracy that even master-level marksmen struggled to overcome consistently. Her breathing remained controlled and methodical, showing none of the tension that typically affected shooters operating at the extreme limits of human marksmanship capability. Sergeant Major Patterson positioned himself where he could observe both her technique and the growing crowd of spectators that now included field-grade officers who had abandoned their regular duties to witness what was clearly becoming a historic achievement. This performance is generating attention from levels of command that will require comprehensive documentation and analysis, he observed to Master Sergeant Kowalski. Her results are challenging fundamental principles that guide our entire approach to marksmanship training and capability assessment. The 34th shot produced another center hit that brought audible expressions of appreciation from observers who had completely abandoned any pretense of routine interest in favor of genuine professional admiration for demonstrated competence that exceeded their collective experience. Behind the firing line, conversations focused entirely on the historical significance of witnessing performance that transcended normal military training parameters. Master Sergeant Kowalski revised his documentation protocols completely, recording what was clearly exceptional achievement that would require detailed analysis by specialists in advanced marksmanship and human performance under extreme conditions. Her consistency under circumstances that defeated multiple expert marksmen suggests capabilities that challenge our understanding of what's possible through conventional training and experience development, he noted to his assistant. Lieutenant Blackwood prepared for her 35th engagement while maintaining the calm professionalism that had characterized her entire performance. Her movements showing confidence, supported by demonstrated excellence rather than uncertainty about challenges that required precision at the very limits of human capability. The target at 1,300 meters demanded aim point selection under visibility conditions that tested even the most advanced optical equipment. Captain Rodriguez found himself anticipating her continued success with the genuine investment of someone witnessing history rather than simply monitoring routine training compliance. She's 2 shots away from tying the course record, he announced to the assembled observers, and she's accomplished this under environmental conditions that are significantly more challenging than those that established the previous benchmark under ideal circumstances. The 35th shot struck the target dead center, producing a moment of respectful silence before confirmation of another perfect impact that brought her within 2 hits of equaling performance that had been considered the absolute pinnacle of military marksmanship achievement. The atmosphere had transformed completely from casual training observation to intense focus on witnessing what appeared to be unprecedented human performance under pressure. Sergeant Thompson adjusted his spotting equipment for maximum precision and found himself genuinely honored to document what was clearly becoming a significant moment in military marksmanship history. Her technique remains fundamentally sound despite mounting pressure and increasing technical difficulty, he reported to Captain Rodriguez. This level of sustained accuracy under these conditions represents something that transcends normal capability parameters and enters the realm of exceptional human achievement. Around the firing line, experienced soldiers discussed her performance with the analytical intensity typically reserved for formal after-action reviews of significant military operations. The collective professional recognition reflected complete transformation from initial skepticism to genuine appreciation for demonstrated capabilities that challenged their understanding of what was possible through individual training and natural talent. Lieutenant Blackwood settled into position for a 36th engagement at 1,350 meters, approaching distances where even the most advanced marksmanship training provided limited guidance for maintaining accuracy under conditions that tested the absolute limits of human visual acuity and motor control precision. Her scope adjustments suggested understanding of ballistic compensation that typically required years of specialized instruction to develop. Behind her position, the assembled crowd had grown to include personnel from multiple units who had heard reports of exceptional shooting and abandoned their regular duties to witness something that was clearly transcending routine training parameters. Conversations focused entirely on the historical significance of what they were observing rather than technical analysis of individual shooting techniques. Master Sergeant Williams approached Captain Rodriguez with the expression of someone who had witnessed performance that challenged fundamental assumptions about human capability assessment. "Sir, if she continues this level of accuracy, we're looking at something that will require formal recognition and documentation at levels that extend far beyond routine training achievement," he said quietly. "Her performance is redefining our understanding of what's possible in precision marksmanship under adverse conditions." Lieutenant Blackwood's 36 shots struck the 1,350-meter target with precision that created absolute silence across the range, followed by Sergeant Thompson's voice confirming another center hit that brought her within one shot of tying the course record that had defined excellence in military marksmanship for 3 years. The assembled crowd had grown to include officers and personnel from across the base, creating an atmosphere of intense anticipation as they witnessed performance that was challenging fundamental assumptions about human capability. Captain Rodriguez found himself holding his breath as she prepared for the 37th engagement, the shot that would equal Master Sergeant Williams' record under environmental conditions that were exponentially more challenging than those that had established the previous benchmark. "This is it," he announced quietly to the assembled observers. "One more center hit ties the course record, and anything beyond that enters territory that no marksman has ever achieved under any circumstances." Master Sergeant Williams approached the firing line with the measured steps of someone witnessing his own achievement being equaled and potentially surpassed under conditions that he acknowledged were far more demanding than those he had faced. "Her performance has been flawless under circumstances that would challenge anyone," he said to Captain Rodriguez. "If she ties my record today, she'll have earned it under conditions that make her achievement significantly more impressive than mine was under ideal weather." Lieutenant Blackwood adjusted her scope for the record-tying shot at 1,400 meters, her movements showing the same calm precision that had characterized every engagement throughout the exercise. Her breathing remained controlled and rhythmic, demonstrating mental discipline that had sustained perfect accuracy through 36 consecutive shots under mounting pressure from both environmental factors and the knowledge that she was approaching historic achievement. The 37th shot echoed across the range with authority that had become familiar yet remained impressive, followed by Sergeant Thompson's confirmation that created an eruption of appreciation from observers who understood they had just witnessed the equaling of a record previously considered the absolute pinnacle of military marksmanship achievement. "Center hit," he announced with genuine admiration. "The course record is tied." Spontaneous applause broke out among the assembled personnel, a rare display of emotion that reflected collective professional recognition of exceptional achievement under extraordinarily challenging conditions. Master Sergeant Williams was the first to approach Lieutenant Blackwood's position, extending his hand with the respect of one professional acknowledging another superior performance under more demanding circumstances. "Outstanding shooting, Lieutenant," he said with genuine appreciation. "You've equaled my record under conditions that were significantly more challenging than those I faced, which makes your achievement considerably more impressive than mine was. The fact that you've maintained perfect accuracy through 37 shots under these environmental circumstances represents marksmanship at a level I've rarely witnessed in 2 decades of military service." Sergeant Major Patterson stepped forward to document what was clearly a significant training achievement that would require formal recognition and analysis. "Lieutenant Blackwood, your performance today has been exceptional by any standard," he announced to the assembled crowd. Tying the course record under these environmental conditions represents marksmanship excellence that transcends normal training parameters and demonstrates capabilities that will require comprehensive documentation and review. Captain Rodriguez approached her position with the professional respect of someone who had witnessed performance that exceeded every expectation and challenged fundamental assumptions about capability assessment. The question now, Lieutenant, is whether you wish to continue beyond the record into territory that no marksman has ever attempted, he said quietly. Anything past 37 hits represents uncharted achievement that would establish new benchmarks for human marksmanship capability. Lieutenant Blackwood completed her post-shot routine with the same methodical precision that had characterized her entire performance, showing none of the fatigue or emotional reaction that might be expected after achieving such significant accomplishment. "Thank you, Captain," she replied calmly. "I'd like to continue and see how far this can go." The confident simplicity of her response created murmurs of appreciation among observers who understood that she was proposing to attempt something that had never been accomplished. Staff Sergeant Chun checked his environmental monitoring equipment and announced conditions with fascination rather than concern, his readings documenting the continued difficulty of maintaining accuracy under circumstances that had already witnessed historic achievement. Wind patterns remained challenging across all range segments, he reported to the assembled observers. Temperature continues climbing, and visibility at extended ranges is affected by thermal activity that would challenge anyone regardless of their training and experience. Master Sergeant Kowalski revised his documentation approach completely, recording unprecedented achievement that would require analysis by specialists in advanced marksmanship and human performance under extreme conditions. Her consistency through 37 perfect shots under these circumstances represents something that transcends normal capability parameters, he noted to his assistant. If she continues beyond the record, we're documenting performance that will establish new understanding of what's possible in precision shooting. Around the firing line, experienced soldiers discussed her achievement with the analytical intensity typically reserved for formal reviews of significant military operations. The collective professional recognition reflected complete transformation from initial skepticism to genuine admiration for demonstrated capabilities that had redefined their understanding of exceptional marksmanship under challenging conditions. Lieutenant Blackwood prepared for her 38th engagement at 1,450 meters, entering territory that no marksman had ever attempted under any circumstances. Her scope adjustments suggested continued understanding of ballistic compensation despite operating beyond all previous experience and established training parameters, demonstrating competence that defied explanation through conventional assessment methods. Behind her position, the assembled crowd maintained respectful silence as they prepared to witness something that transcended routine military training and entered the realm of historic human achievement under pressure. The atmosphere reflected collective recognition that they were observing performance that would be remembered and analyzed for its significance in understanding the limits of human capability under adverse conditions. Captain Rodriguez found himself anticipating her continued success with genuine investment in witnessing history rather than simply monitoring training compliance. "She's now operating beyond all established benchmarks," he observed to Master Sergeant Williams. "Whatever happens from this point forward represents achievement that will require formal recognition at levels that extend far beyond routine training documentation and enters the realm of exceptional human performance under extreme conditions." Lieutenant Blackwood's 38th shot shattered the course record with precision that left observers struggling to comprehend performance that transcended all previous understanding of human marksmanship capability. And Sergeant Thompson's confirmation of another sitter hit marked the beginning of truly unprecedented achievement that would redefine excellence in military shooting. The assembled crowd maintained reverent silence as they witnessed the first step in a territory that no marksman had ever explored under any conditions. Master Sergeant Williams found himself observing technique that challenged every assumption he had developed about the limits of precision shooting during his distinguished career. "She's now operating beyond all established parameters," he said quietly to Captain Rodriguez. "Every shot from this point forward represents achievement that has never been documented in military marksmanship history, and her consistency suggests capabilities that transcend conventional training and experience development." The 39th and 40th shots continued into uncharted territory with the same flawless execution that had characterized her entire performance, each impact demonstrating sustained accuracy that defied professional understanding of what was physically and mentally possible under such demanding environmental conditions. Staff Sergeant Chun abandoned his routine monitoring protocols to focus entirely on documenting what was clearly becoming a defining moment in military marksmanship achievement. Captain Rodriguez found himself witnessing performance that required immediate attention from command levels rarely concerned with individual training results. This achievement is going to generate questions and analysis that extend far beyond our standard assessment protocols, he observed to Sergeant Major Patterson. Her performance is establishing new understanding of human capability under pressure that will impact training and evaluation procedures across multiple specialties. Lieutenant Blackwood adjusted her scope for increasingly challenging distances while maintaining the calm professionalism that had sustained her through 40 consecutive perfect shots, her movements showing confidence supported by demonstrated excellence rather than uncertainty about operating in territory that had never been explored by any marksman. Her breathing remained controlled and rhythmic, suggesting mental discipline that was managing pressure at levels that would overwhelm most shooters. Behind the firing line, experienced soldiers gathered in larger groups to discuss what they were witnessing with the analytical intensity typically reserved for formal reviews of historic military operations. Conversations focused entirely on the significance of observing performance that was redefining fundamental assumptions about human marksmanship capability under adverse conditions that had defeated multiple expert shooters. Master Sergeant Kowalski revised his documentation approach completely, recording unprecedented human achievement that would require analysis by specialists in fields ranging from advanced ballistics to performance psychology under extreme conditions. Her sustained accuracy through 40 perfect shots under these circumstances represents something that challenges our understanding of what's possible through any combination of training, experience, and natural talent, he noted to his assistant. The 41st and 42nd shots maintained the pattern of flawless execution that had transformed routine training into a historic demonstration of exceptional human performance under pressure. Each impact drew increasingly serious attention from observers who understood that they were documenting achievement that would be studied and analyzed for its implications regarding the limits of human capability under challenging conditions. Sergeant Major Patterson positioned himself where he could observe both her technique and the growing crowd of spectators that now included personnel from across the base who had abandoned their regular duties to witness something that was clearly transcending normal military training parameters. This performance is generating attention from field-grade leadership that will require comprehensive documentation and formal recognition at levels that acknowledge historic achievement. Lieutenant Blackwood prepared for her 43rd engagement at distances that tested the absolute limits of both equipment capability and human visual acuity, entering range parameters where atmospheric effects and physical constraints imposed challenges that even theoretical marksmanship training provided limited guidance for overcoming. Her scope adjustments suggested continued understanding of ballistic compensation despite operating beyond all established experience and training protocols. Staff Sergeant Chun monitored environmental conditions with fascination rather than professional concern, his equipment readings documenting the extraordinary difficulty of maintaining accuracy under circumstances that continued to challenge the most advanced marksmanship techniques available to military personnel. Heat shimmer, wind variance, and visibility factors are all working against precision at these ranges, he announced to the assembled observers. Her ability to maintain consistency suggests capabilities that exceed our standard assessment and training parameters. The 43rd shot produced another center hit that created audible expressions of appreciation from observers who had completely abandoned any pretense of routine interest in favor of genuine professional admiration for performance that was establishing new benchmarks for human achievement under extreme conditions. Behind the firing line, conversations became increasingly focused on the historical significance of witnessing something that would require formal analysis and documentation. Captain Rodriguez approached Lieutenant Blackwood's position with the professional respect of someone who had witnessed achievement that exceeded every expectation and challenged fundamental assumptions about capability assessment under pressure. Your performance today has redefined our understanding of what's possible in precision marksmanship, he said quietly. You're now operating in territory that will establish new standards for excellence that will be studied and referenced for years to come. Around the firing line, experienced marksmen discussed her achievement with the kind of professional recognition typically reserved for acknowledged masters who had demonstrated capabilities that transcended normal training and experience parameters. The collective admiration reflected complete transformation from initial skepticism to genuine appreciation for performance that had redefined their understanding of exceptional marksmanship under challenging environmental conditions. Master Sergeant Williams found himself documenting technique that challenged every principle he had learned about the theoretical limits of human marksmanship capability during 2 decades of military service. Her consistency at these distances under these conditions represents something that will require formal study by specialists who understand the physics and psychology of precision shooting at the absolute limits of human performance, he reported to Captain Rodriguez. Lieutenant Blackwood settled into position for a 44th engagement, while maintaining the methodical precision that had sustained perfect accuracy through 43 consecutive shots under conditions that had defeated multiple expert marksmen earlier in the day. Her confidence appeared unshaken by operating in territory that no marksman had ever explored, supported by demonstrated competence that was earning recognition from observers who understood the extraordinary nature of what she was accomplishing. Lieutenant Blackwood's progression through the 70s and 80s created an atmosphere of breathless anticipation as each shot brought her closer to the impossible 99 target achievement that had seemed utterly unattainable when the exercise began with 6 expert marksmen failing under the same conditions. The assembled crowd had grown to include the base commander and senior staff who had abandoned critical meetings to witness what was clearly becoming the most significant marksmanship demonstration in military history. Her 85th shot struck the target at maximum range with precision that left observers speechless, the impact confirming that she was maintaining perfect accuracy at distances where atmospheric effects should have made consistent shooting physically impossible. Master Sergeant Williams approached Captain Rodriguez with the expression of someone witnessing performance that transcended every principle he had learned about human capability under extreme conditions. Sir, she's now 14 shots away from achieving something that violates everything we understand about the limits of precision marksmanship, he said quietly. Her consistency at these ranges under these environmental conditions represents capability that will require complete revision of our training protocols and assessment procedures. This isn't just exceptional shooting. This is redefining what we thought was humanly possible. The 90th shot created absolute silence across the range as observers realized they were witnessing the approach to an achievement that would establish Lieutenant Blackwood as the most accomplished marksman in documented military history. Captain Rodriguez found himself holding his breath as she prepared for the final 9 engagements that would complete the impossible course that had defeated every previous attempt under any conditions. Staff Sergeant Chun abandoned all pretense of routine environmental monitoring to focus entirely on documenting what was clearly historic human achievement under pressure. Wind conditions, heat shimmer, and visibility factors that should have made accurate shooting impossible are being overcome through technique and mental discipline that exceed our understanding of what training and natural talent can produce, he announced to the assembled observers. Lieutenant Blackwood's 95th shot maintained the pattern of flawless execution that had characterized every engagement throughout the exercise, her movements showing the same calm precision that had sustained perfect accuracy through 94 consecutive shots under conditions that had humbled the military's most experienced marksmen. Her breathing remained controlled and rhythmic, demonstrating mental discipline that was managing pressure at levels that would overwhelm anyone operating at the theoretical limits of human performance. The 96th, 97th, and 98th shots continued with mechanical precision that left observers struggling to comprehend sustained accuracy that defied every principle of physics and human limitation they had learned during their military careers. Each impact drew expressions of disbelief from personnel who understood they were witnessing something that would be studied and analyzed for decades as an example of exceptional human achievement under impossible conditions. As Lieutenant Blackwood prepared for the 99th and final shot, the entire range fell into reverent silence, broken only by the sound of wind through the observation towers and the distant hum of base operations continuing around them. Captain Rodriguez realized that this moment would define not only her career, but also establish new understanding of what was possible when exceptional training met extraordinary natural talent under the most demanding circumstances. The final shot echoed across the range with authority that had become familiar, yet remained miraculous after 98 previous demonstrations of impossible accuracy, followed by Sergeant Thompson's voice confirming the completion of something that no marksman had ever achieved under any conditions. Center hit. 99 consecutive targets. Course complete. The eruption of appreciation that followed reflected collective recognition of witnessing history, as personnel from across the base acknowledged performance that had redefined excellence in military marksmanship and established new benchmarks for human capability under extreme pressure. Master Sergeant Williams was the first to reach her position, extending his hand with the profound respect of one professional acknowledging another's achievement that transcended all previous understanding of what was possible. Lieutenant, what you've accomplished today represents the most exceptional marksmanship demonstration I've witnessed in 23 years of military service, he said with genuine admiration. You've achieved something that will be remembered and studied as an example of human excellence under impossible conditions, and you've done it with the professionalism and precision that defines the best of military tradition. Sergeant Major Patterson stepped forward to document achievement that would require formal recognition at the highest levels of military leadership. Lieutenant Blackwood, your performance today has established new standards for excellence that will impact training and assessment procedures across multiple specialties, he announced to the assembled crowd. This achievement represents not only exceptional individual capability, but also demonstrates what's possible when preparation meets opportunity under the most challenging circumstances. Captain Rodriguez approached her position with the professional recognition of someone who had witnessed performance that exceeded every expectation and established new understanding of human potential under pressure. Your shooting today has been absolutely flawless under conditions that defeated multiple expert marksmen, he said quietly. You've demonstrated capabilities that will require complete revision of our assumptions about what's achievable through training, natural talent, and mental discipline under adverse conditions. Around the firing line, experienced soldiers discussed her achievement with the analytical intensity typically reserved for formal reviews of historic military operations. Their conversations reflecting complete transformation from initial skepticism to genuine appreciation for demonstrated excellence that had redefined their understanding of exceptional marksmanship under challenging environmental conditions that should have made such performance impossible. Lieutenant Blackwood completed her post-exercise routine with the same methodical precision that had characterized her entire performance, showing the quiet professionalism that had sustained perfect accuracy through 99 consecutive shots under circumstances that had established her as the most accomplished marksman in documented military history, while maintaining the humble demeanor that had characterized her approach throughout the impossible demonstration. If you enjoyed this story of unexpected excellence under pressure, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite moment, or share if you've witnessed similar demonstrations of hidden capability that challenged everyone's assumptions. Sometimes the most remarkable achievements come from the most unexpected sources, proving that excellence can emerge when preparation meets opportunity under the most demanding circumstances. The transformation of every observer from skeptical dismissal to profound professional respect reflected the power of demonstrated competence to challenge assumptions and earn recognition that transcended rank, experience, and preconceived notions about capability, establishing Lieutenant Blackwood's achievement as a defining moment that would be remembered and referenced as an example of what becomes possible when exceptional training meets extraordinary natural talent under impossible conditions.